Yeah, I mean, shit happens, right? I mean, if you're alive, bad things are gonna befall you.
The description of Craig's injuries are something that to this day still turn my stomach.
From the report that I'd gotten, you know, long fall, climber long fall, hit the ground, I was pretty much expecting the worst.
Craig had fallen 110 feet, I think is what he told me on the phone, and but he said that everything was going to be okay, that he just had, you know, that he had his ankle were broken.
If you fall 10 feet, you have a 10% chance of dying. If you fall 20 feet, you have a 20% chance of dying. You know, and on up the line, obviously, if you fall from 94 feet, chance of living is generally nothing.
My name's Craig Demartino. I've been a climber for about 30 years. In 2002, I was up at Lumpy Ridge with my good friend Steve. That particular day on July 22nd, we walked out to Sundance Buttress. Steve was walking first, I was kind of behind him, and the whole time walking out there, I just kept thinking how bad I felt. Felt really off, I just didn't feel psyched. Thought it was actually nerves or whatever. Once we get to the route, I'll be fine. It'll go away, which is what it usually does. Walked up the hill to White Man, which is a pretty steep 11C. As we were walking over, he said, let's go and top rope this, but I want you to lead it. In my head, I heard the word top rope. To me, that meant that I was gonna climb the pitch first, clip into the anchor, then he was gonna lower me to the ground, then we were gonna climb it one at a time. And I clipped in direct, yelled down to him that I was off belay. And Steve yelled up, okay, you're off belay. Checked in the anchor, got it set up to top rope. When I did that, I yelled, okay, it's all you. What I did just as a last thing was I reached out, grabbed the rope, and gave it a tug just to see if I could feel some tension. Feeling that, I pulled back in, unclipped the carabiners from my harness, and sat back, and immediately started falling. The last thing I could see was the anchor just blazing away from me super fast. I just kept falling and falling and falling. And about 20 feet from the ground, there was a dead tree that I hit with my head, and the tree stood me right back up to standing. And both my feet took the brunt of everything. And hitting with your feet, you actually have a chance of survival because the shockwave has somewhere to go. Both my feet shattered when I hit the ground. I hit so hard that I had compound fractures of the tibia and ankle on both legs. All the bones just came out the inside of my legs. I severed the artery on my right leg as well. I crumpled down further and my back broke at L2, which is straight through your belly button. It hit so hard it collapsed the L2 completely that I don't even have it anymore. They had to fuse it together with rods and screws. The shockwave kept going up. It broke the ribs on my right side, punctured my lung on the right side, tore my labrum on my shoulder on the right side, broke the bursa sacs in my elbow on the right side, kept moving up, and broke my neck at C5, C6, which is straight through your Adam's apple. After that, I just crumpled down on the talus blocks. My partner thought I was dead.
Before getting hurt, I did a lot of alpine climbing. It's kind of what defined me. But I'd think about day and night and do trips around the world to various cool places. I shattered my lower leg in a pretty bad accident while climbing in 2010, and I had like 5 surgeries on that, resulting in my right ankle is now fused. We kind of, in some ways, became kindred spirits, I guess, with our injuries and surgeries. His were far worse than mine.
You really wondered how well he would do. I mean, obviously a very serious injury. We could tell that he had what we call an L2 burst fracture, burst compression fracture, where the bone is smashed down. Part of the bone went posterior into the spinal canal.
Dr. Turner told me that his spinal column was 90% compromised, which is a very significant amount. That he didn't expect Craig to live, more than an hour when they got him there.
The next thing I remember is waking up in intensive care.
I looked at the paperwork she had to sign the night of the surgeries and things when they brought me in, and a lot of them were, if he dies, what do you want us to do? If this happens, what do you want us to do?
They fused my back, L1 through 4, with some rods, and then they fused my neck in a collar, and then called it good. I was in ICU for 5 days.
I do my hyperbaric oxygen treatments. It's supposed to increase healing. It encourages bone growth, tissue growth, and it helps stem off infection.
You're just trying to figure out, what the hell just happened? You're so completely lost. They said he's gonna probably be a paraplegic because he broke his back so bad. And if the back didn't do it, where he broke his neck, that's where everybody becomes a quadriplegic. Bye. But hey, he's alive.
My son, who's almost 2, I don't think he really has any idea. But my daughter, who's almost 4, she grasps it completely. She looked at me and she said, "Daddy, what happened?" And I said, and I was crying and trying, I couldn't hold her because of my back. And she was sitting right next to me on the bed, and I said, "Well, Daddy fell climbing." And she looks at me and she goes, "Well, you can't roughhouse like this anymore."
I have like real spotty feeling from the waist down. Actually, still to this day, I can't feel my hands that well. I can feel like heavy touch, so like if you punch me, I could feel that, but if you try to tickle me, I can't feel that. When you're all smashed up, it's easy to say, no, I'm not gonna go back to it. I would look at the cliffs, and as soon as I would get kind of close to them, I'd think, okay, I'm gonna tie in. And then I'd think like, God, hell no, I can't, there's no way. I was belaying Maya, and she did this little short 5'8".
She did great on it. She came down and she kind of turned to Craig and she was like, "Hey, are you gonna climb this?"
It just caught me so off guard.
He was like, "Well, yeah."
Started climbing, and it was just the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. My back hurt, my foot hurt. When I looked up, my neck hurt, scared out of my mind.
He got to the top and he kind of froze. I
just could not let go.
He was petrified.
I thought for sure as soon as I let go, I was gonna pick up speed and just go all the way to the deck again. I hear Cindy, and she just started talking, and she said, "Just let go, you're fine." Once I heard it from her, I was like, okay, I'm gonna let go. And I just let go and sat in my harness.
It was totally a turning point. He realized that he really liked the movement of climbing. You know, he missed it.
Yeah, I just started remembering cool things. The way the rock feels under your fingers, the way the wind feels when you're climbing, the way the rock smells. Like, oddly enough, I would like the way chalk felt. It felt different. So it was like, oh, that's kind of new and that's kind of interesting. When I pull a climbing shoe on, that really uncomfortable cramping you get, that was a cool thing to remember again. All those little things kept weighing in, and I liked it. And basically I would terrify myself, swear it off, and then remember pieces of it.
I know a bunch of guys that like tried to keep their residual limbs that were just maimed, and they made this decision to like, they'd rather be handicapped than crippled. You know, they can do more with a prosthetic or, you know, without this painful remnant of a limb that just didn't do anything.
People often want to hold on to what convention would call completeness and live in an incompleteness. You go from keeping a leg and no one knowing that you have a problem to removing your leg and everybody could tell you have a problem. And that's a big step for people to make.
We did like 10 or 11 surgeries total on that foot. I couldn't move my toes. I couldn't feel it at all. They say, okay, mark your leg and sign your name. And that's so they don't cut the wrong leg off. And I'm like, this is getting way rowdy and I don't think this is a good idea anymore. Right then my surgeon shows up. And I had an IV in already. He just nodded at the nurse and boom. And then all of a sudden it seemed like a great idea. 4 months after that, I was tying back in. Climbing is what makes me happy. My family is what makes me happy. So that's where I focused my energy. And as soon as I started doing that, things started happening. I was able to work. I was able to do the things I wanted to do and go to the places I wanted to go and be with the people I wanted to be with.
Here? Oh, low.
Yeah. So it's a right foot.
Oh yeah, it's a right foot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like what?
I don't have that foot. Sorry, my bad.
He does a really good job of looking at everything, and I think that's probably why he was actually, you know, what I would consider, you know, successful from an accident like that. He's never gonna have a leg again. It matters, but not in the sense that it like changes how he thinks as a person. He never really got suckered into these really small things. You know, I'm not gonna be able to do this, I'm not gonna be able to do this.
Doctors were just like, if you're so stupid to go back and climb again, you at least can't lead something where you're gonna take like a big old winger. I had done it for so long, my body kind of was like, oh, we know what this is. This is a good thing. So it became this great physical therapy. did have a problem. There's a speed climbing comp, this thing called the Extremity Games. That's like the X Games for disabled people. And I thought, oh, you know what, I'll talk to a climber who's done well at the X Games, and that was Hans Florin. When I was a young climber, he was like a hero of mine, so it was like calling Michael Jordan up and being like, hey, I'd like to shoot better hoops. And he's like, you know what you should do, I can teach you how to climb plastic fast for sure, but why don't you come out to California, you can stay at my house, we'll climb El Cap together. Just climb in a day. No amputees have done that. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is a terrible idea. It's a horrible idea. I'm gonna either get hurt or killed.
I had no idea that he was terrified out of his mind for the whole thing. He's so in control of his emotion. We arrive at the base, he carries his share of the load, maybe a little more because my knees hurt. You know, it's kind of funny, my knees hurt and like he's missing a leg.
Maybe noonish, we were over halfway up the climb, and it became very apparent to me that we actually might get off this thing in the daylight, which would be so amazing.
We each climb half of the pitches on Lurking Fear, which is a pretty stout route on El Cap, and we finish it in a day, which may have been the first disabled one-day ascent of El Cap. He was ace, and immediately after finishing the day with him, I was psyched, like, I'll climb with this guy anytime. He just has an awesome attitude and super competent at big wall climbing. I'd say he almost climbs as fast as like 3/4 of my speed. So he's pretty darn quick too.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, we just climbed El Cap in 14 hours. And he's like, yeah, we could have gone faster. I was just shocked that we actually pulled it off and that I felt really good. So I started thinking like, okay, if we did this, what else could I actually get my head around to kind of do? And he was like, you should just come up with all disabled people at some point because you've got the skill set, the wall savvy to do it. Whenever it's done, there's an able-bodied climber and then a disabled climber. Whereas if you just had all disabled people or like all amputees, that's never been done.
I never kind of liked being helped by abled people. So to see what he did in Yosemite with his all adaptive ascent, I was just like, F yes, like we don't need anybody. We don't need to be guided or hauled up.
What's up, dog? Hey! Yeah! Good job, man. Yeah!
To kind of get going, I have to take some kind of a painkiller. I don't take a narcotic painkiller, but I have to take something just to kind of get moving so that you're not in this constant state of hell. And it's just this buzz that's always there, and I can deal with that, but it's not overtaking. And that allows me to kind of do what I want to do. To me, one of the most comforting things I can do is go climbing to a place that I'm familiar with. That feeling of being in a place that's comfortable to me, being on maybe a route that I know, is really calming. It's where I can kind of shut stuff out, and it's a way for me to kind of just throttle back and just focus on what I'm doing. And I think that piece of climbing has always been really valuable to me, and it's something that I found really early on in my climbing career was that that's what I liked. Well, now when you have all these injuries, that still works. That single-minded focus still works, and it's been 30 years now, and I'm still able to do that. I actually crave that feeling because when I get kind of overwhelmed, like health stuff or whatever's happening, I can go and do that, and it kind of resets my clock every time.
Come on. Nice. You hit it hard. Nicely done.
He travels a ton to do clinics all over the country, And it's definitely become like a good opportunity for us to not only just travel and climb, but also meet a bunch of very amazing people who have like really incredible stories.
So you're really using your leg, your prosthetic, like a kickstand. Okay. So it's just going to move you from point A to point B to get your good leg on. Okay. That's all we're trying to do every time. I've got you on belay.
I was an operations manager for NASCAR. I was running a big aerial lift. The hydraulics went out on the left side and it tilted over and it fell over this way and I fell out of it and it fell on top of me. It was 30 ton. I was in the hospital 8 months. Yeah, they didn't think I was going to make it. I'm still alive, that's all that matters to me. Because I got friends of mine that don't do nothing. You know, and I'm like, dude, you got to get out, man. You can't just sit here at home all the time. I mean, nothing's going to stop me.
We all still feel pain, even if someone else's is greater than yours. You still feel it. And that I think that we can learn from people like Craig in terms of resilience, perseverance. Maybe I have more strength inside me than I realized. And that's what people like Craig bring out.
So I struggle with what can I do as a climber and as a human to get back to the sport and get back to the environment, get back to people that are hurt, give back to people that have lost things that have been taken away from them. And Craig shows up and that's just what he does.
He's that really important first contact for a lot of disabled people who maybe never thought about climbing as something they could do before, and he's that kind of hook that gets them in for the first time. He's like, try this. And then he's just such an amazing personality about it and so encouraging that I think a lot of the people he gets for the first time come back for a second and a third.
Sam! Welcome to the party. Sam just started climbing like literally a month ago. He came to a clinic of mine. At first he was like, I don't know about this. And then he did it once and then he came down and he was like, I don't know. He's been to a clinic with me every other week now for the past month.
He's trying to make it a little bit easier for Sam to campus. He's also side climbing with him to kind of show him kind of what holds to use.
It's weird, like as you know, like if you're not in deep enough, you just kind of cruise right out of it. So I keep joking with his mom. I'm like, he's gonna be living in a van here pretty soon. Just cruising around the different areas, setting up these push rigs.
I was climbing on El Capitan. I fell about 120 feet off the boot flake, hit Texas flake, rattled my way down, rope never came taut, broke my scapula 4 ribs, fractured my T12 and my L4. This is my first day of adaptive climbing. First, I'm going to check it for marmot bites just to make sure it's still safe.
Yard and go, yard and go. Lock it up. And I can help you as much or as little as you want. Or I can just hurl insults.
I prefer insults.
Pump out? Oh, that's going to happen no matter what. Come on.
I have not known Craig for a very long time face-to-face, but I've known of Craig for a really long time. This community is incredible, and I've found that I need it. I need to talk to these people to see what they're going through, see what it's been like. Yeah, just to get like detailed experiences of their injury and their pain and their recovery and the crying if it stops, if the joy comes back, all of that stuff. And it does, they say.
He spends a lot of his time instructing and informing others on how they can acquire the skills, the equipment, and the mentality around overcoming their setback, whether it's an amputation, paralysis, blindness. If there is some form of barrier, he's going to help them overcome it, go around it, surmount it. His full-time job is being the nicest dude on the planet, Craig Demartino.
Antibiotics, pain pills, I don't even know what this one is. Oh, pain pill. Climbed 4 pitches. And I looked at Cindy and I'm like, something ain't right. And I take my leg off and I'm like, fuck, it's all like, look at how like swollen and shit. And we went to the ER. The dude's like, yeah, this is bad. Like, you're really bad infected right now. You're gonna get admitted to the hospital. I'm like, whoa, what? Dude, it hurts so bad. It felt like my leg was gonna explode. My leg kept getting bigger. They were like, okay, we're gonna try every antibiotic we have. And then they just pumped this crud through me for, I don't know, 10 hours. And the doctors came in and he goes, well, you have an opening like that big, it's not healed, and that got infected and you just can't feel it because of my spinal cord injury. Yeah, man, that's my life for right now. We are going to find out if the leg cleared up at all. And then if the drugs they're using are working. I'm psyched that they're gonna say everything's awesome. Of course, that's me. I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV, and I should be a doctor right now. Yeah, last week kind of sucked. What I project outwardly is very different than what's in my head, and so in my head, I'm kind of doing, I think, what I would call damage control. Here's what I got, here's what I can do. Outside of Cindy, I really don't vent to people and say, oh, this is kind of a junk show right now. And like my wife always says that, she's like, the good thing is you joke about anything. She's like to tell you crappy news and you're like, oh well.
It's still kind of puffy.
I know.
Gosh, it still has that depth.
He's really good at breaking doctor's orders. Like he'll come out to one of our climbing nights and just be like, yeah, I shouldn't be here right now, but and then he ropes him and climbs. He never just comes to sit and watch. Like if he's there, he's climbing.
Roping up, dude. Against doctor's orders?
I think it would be, but we didn't ask. And so if you don't ask, then they don't say no. So you just tell them later. I went climbing right after the skin graft. Thanks very much. I had a good time.
Would I blame my climbing partner for taking me off belay and dropping me to what was almost my death? Perhaps I would blame him.
The number one thing I hear from people is, tell us about that guy.
I've relived it in my mind 100 times, or thousands, or tens of thousands. I just saw the rope, which was lying at my feet, just take off vertically. And Craig hit the ground with a very large thud. Both feet were horrible, but one was really bad.
Yeah.
And I don't wake up at night thinking about it anymore, but I can still envision it.
Because people always say that, how the hell, how could you guys do that? And it's like, it's pretty easy, actually. I mean, because you just don't pay attention. You get super comfy.
I think there's 1 in a million people that would have handled it the way you did.
I think the thing that helped me the most was like you came in every day. To me, it's like I wouldn't change the
journey?
The journey, yeah. I got to know you better. I got to know my wife way better. I got to know, you know what I mean? I got to know me, I think, better.
Life is a series of choices, and however you did it, you chose the positive one wherever you could, and that has made all the difference. I blame myself more than I blame Craig, and I'm sure that Craig probably blames himself more than he blames me, but
exactly.
I mean, that's just kind of type of people probably we are, and maybe that's why we're here today and not,
bitter, drunk man in a bar.
All right, with our hand wrapped around a bottle,
I do have a bottle in the car though,
just okay. Perfect.
Just in case.
I have no idea what I'd do if I lost my leg or my arm, but I would like to think that I had the same resolve as Craig to hit all the positive things about it and just take it on.
You think of people like Craig, and I've thought of him when I'm on my own recovery path. You think of people like that, and they give you inspiration. And I think without inspiration, no particular human advances.
Not letting one event kind of dictate how your life turns out. Like even if something really bad happens to you, you shouldn't let that be the defining factor of your life. Like it can definitely be a contributing factor to who you are, but it should never be something that defines you as a person. You can always be more than your problems.